It was the saltfish capital of Labrador, the center of the floater fishery, the metropolis of the south coast. Battle Harbour, a monument to Labrador's early history.
This harbour was lined with houses and boats on the collars. All outside, there was no room to build another house. Shacks, stages, houses. This side was the same way, all lined right out. And skunners and salmon collectors, you know. Look when you like to see a boat coming or going, you know, just see it. And this harbour was really booming.
Ben Butt fished through the boom when schooners still came from the island each spring. He remembers more than 60 crews fishing cod out of Battle Harbour and 20 salmon crews. Now there are 2 and only a handful of nets that need mending. Ben watched the schooners disappear, then with resettlement the liviers, and finally the fish disappeared too. Ben Butt watched Battle Harbour die. Today, he's watching its resurrection. Battle Harbour is being restored, building by building by building, 20 in all, an entire community. I'm Pauline Thornhill. Tonight we bring you the story of Battle Harbour, the former fishing station that lays claim to over 2 centuries of Labrador history. It began in the late 1700s with John Slade Company of England. The merchant company came for fish and quickly set up shop, a premises. It would become the busiest on the Labrador coast. There were other fishing stations on the coast, but none boasted Labrador's first ranger station, Labrador's first telegraph office, or Labrador's first hospital, set up by Wilfred Grenfell in 1893. It was Grenfell's first, and outside of St. John's, the only hospital in Newfoundland and Labrador. It burnt to the ground in 1930, the year Ben Butt was born.
You would get what you wanted here, you know. Any kind of food you want, or any kind of salt, or a gas, or any kind of oil you want, you could get here in Battle Harbour. It was here at the Battle Harbour to get, you know, you could buy it, you know.
So when they say Battle Harbour was the capital of Labrador, they weren't kidding, were they?
No, it was no joke. This was the capital of Battle Harbour. And this was the home of the fishery. The home of the fishery, because this place never failed. Well, I did see it fail one year. But then the next year she was back booming again.
These days, there's a construction boom in Battle Harbour. A boom that started 3 summers ago, when a group of local people decided the church should be restored. From there, the Battle Harbour Historic Trust was born, and the idea to restore the whole premises and attract tourist dollars. $1.5 million of ACOA money started them off. The trust has raised that much and more since. Now, 20 people work on site from early June till late October, when the first ice threatens. Clem Morgan is the site foreman.
So this is where the banister was.
Tom Padden is project manager. They pick through the remains of each building, searching for its story and the story of the people who lived in it.
Nails on here, and 45 is running the back wall.
It comes right on in here. Oh yeah, you can see the...
Yeah, and a little square newel post underneath that
right
one.
in the corner.
And the baluster's about, say, I'd say 3/4 by 3/4 inch by something like that.
Yeah,
square.
yeah.
They think this house is the oldest private home on the coast, built in the 1830s by George Smith, a common man, it seems, whose family soon outgrew their home.
Yeah. But as we found, they divided the room, eh?
You can see right there, look, there's 45 around,
Yeah.
baseboard,
Yeah.
right across here.
So that comes right over onto this side. And, oh yeah. So they came up, the chimney was in this room, in the parents' room.
Yeah.
And the other room was the smaller room, so you get a little more heat in here.
Yeah.
They came up, put the divider in.
Right on.
And they brought it right across onto...
You know, they were forced put, eh?
Yeah.
They had to do that.
Well, as the family grew, I guess they needed to do it. So this little patch, about 25% of the window, would have given light to that room.
Yeah,
That's why they put the
yeah.
That's why they put the wall in the middle.
There are clues in the wood, in the construction. They say George Smith was a man who made the best of what he had. A man who built his house from whatever lumber he could find, probably bits and pieces of other old buildings.
Look at those nail holes, oh. All weather-beaten board. It's been all reused from the previous building. That's how you tell it's, you know, same over here. Look, this has been all one time used elsewhere. And it's been all nail holes right through every place.
Well, to me, old wood looks like old wood.
Yeah. You see, this is a vertical partition. There's single boards up and down. So if that would have been new board, there would not be no holes. Absolutely no nail holes in the wall, you see. And what they planed it down as best they could to make it smooth. And when they couldn't get that smooth, what they did was use sailcloth on it, or flour sacks, and then they put the paper on.
How closely do you have to examine what's left of a house before you feel you're ready to put it back together the way it was?
Well, you got to take a real good eye and look at it, make sure you know what it was before you can put it back the way it's supposed to be. But if you don't take a good eye and look at it, you forget, then you probably make a mess of it, you know. Like the corner boards, we had to measure all the different widths, like right here, for example, oh, I got marked on don't destroy. So we can take this to make a duplication of it and put it back exactly the way it was.
So you're not renovating, are you?
Restoration, big difference. We're restoring it as close as we can to its original state. That's what we're doing.
There are ghosts in Battle Harbour. You can feel the history here. In the old salt store, you can actually taste it.
It's an enormous building.
So how much salt could you fit in here?
Oh, an immense amount. It's a 3-story building, and they'd fill 2 floors of it when necessary. And on this floor alone, you could put in 18,000 bags of salt.
18,000 bags.
That's 1.4 million pounds.
That's incredible.
720 tons. And you can see, because sometimes they would have to store more salt on the next floor, which is the same size as this one, could hold just as much. You can even see some of the beams are sagged. Actually, on warm days in here, sweating out of these beams, you can find dripping pickle. You can touch your finger up to it, and it's running out. And you can see it's just crystallizing here. There's so much salt has gone into the wood that on a warm day, you can see the little drips coming out. And if you reach up and catch one, just put it on your tongue. It's pure pickle.
Oh, wow. There's lots of old stuff up here.
That's right.
Look at the barrels.
The barrels are herring barrels. There's dozens of them back there.
The salt store supplied the whole south coast of Labrador. Salt boats were constantly coming and going, loading and unloading.
There would have been a ramp going out, would have extended out to where the wharf is, and then the big salt ships would come in, and they'd unload their salt onto the ramp, and men would go out with these barrels that we've seen and wheel it in, and as they began filling up in here, they, to get it down to the first floor, they would dump it out right here, and they'd shovel it down, and there are holes like this.
Well, that's why all these holes are
That's
all over
right.
the place.
That's right. That's exactly it.
So just imagine the millions and millions of wheelbarrows full of salt that must have come through that hole.
Over the years, I mean, they'd be constantly bringing salt. I mean, this building would be full at the beginning of the season. And as it was being used, there'd be boats constantly bringing more and more. I mean, there are as many as 3 large boats tied up at the wharves out there, bringing in salt for the building and to be distributed in the surrounding area. And still sometimes they'd run low and maybe even run out.
It's hard to imagine these days that much fish, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. It sure is, especially for the people around here, of course. They, you know, it's painful to remember it, and for them, the older men and women, to see it now with no fish. Can't even get a meal.
Marjorie Jones remembers the fish and the schooners. As a little girl, she'd climbed ahead on Sunday evenings, counting sails as they rounded Belle Isle, fleets of vessels on their way from Newfoundland. Marjorie was born here. She still comes back every summer.
Yeah, this home, and when the time comes for me to come out, I really like to come out. Probably if I had been staying away from it now, I wouldn't want to come, you know. But see, they've been coming every year, well, I still like to come back.
You haven't missed a summer, have you?
No, I haven't missed no summers now.
Well, Marjorie, what do you think now when you look at all the old buildings being put back the way they were?
Oh, it looks nice, looks good to see it done, you know. Yeah, it looks really nice, yeah. Guess everything was getting pretty bad, you know. But it's looking bad, looking nice now, what they got done, you know.
Marjorie's son Jim is determined to keep the family home up to scratch too. He also has a love of Battle Harbour, and through him, in a way, history's repeating itself. For years, Jim's father worked in the store in Battle Harbour. Today, Jim and his wife run the store. They've leased it from the trust.
Seeing that father was associated with Battle Harbour for so long, that I wanted to get, you know, get a foothold there too, just because, for that reason that he was here. Yeah.
Yes, for years and
and
years
just,
and years.
yeah. So I'd figured I'd like to keep on here too.
Even though you were setting up shop in a place that really, there wasn't much going on in anymore, hey?
That's
I mean,
right, yeah.
Did you think of it as a good business proposition?
No, not really as a good business proposition, but more or less, you know, peace of mind, knowing that I would be still associated with Battle Harbour.
Potatoes, Keith? Yep.
Once, this store supplied the
Big,
whole
small,
South
medium,
Coast,
large?
the only store that was stocked year-round.
All right, small, medium.
It's a different world these days. Battle Harbour isn't exactly swarming with people anymore, just a handful of families back for the summer, along with the site workers.
It's a gamble, no doubt, and I mean, last year wasn't a great year for us. And I guess if we had been into it for business purposes, we wouldn't be here now. But we decided, no, we'll go back and give it a try and see what happens. We're willing to give it 2 or 3 years and see what happens over that period of time.
After Slade and Company of England, Bain Johnson ran the store for almost 80 years. Then Earl Freighting Service of Carbonear took over. Earls held on to Battle Harbour till the moratorium. Then they donated the store and premises to the Historic Trust.
We got lots of pork now, do we?
Lots.
Okay.
We'll need some more onions.
Onions, okay.
Yvonne and Jim Jones knew the store was no gold mine when they asked to run it. But it was a chance to be part of Battle Harbour, part of the restoration.
I don't know, I think for both of us is just that it is a clear picture of how our families grew up, the way that they lived, how they made a living, and, you know, I think it's that part of it that means so much to us, you know?
It was Marjorie Jones' way of life, and Ben Butts, and hundreds of others. These people, these old buildings, They're the last link, the remaining connection with the coast's early history, and the kind of fishery that shaped the entire province. The Northern Ranger is carrying precious cargo. Tourists, Marine Atlantic's first scheduled tour group visit ever. The group is small, less than 20 people, mostly from the States and Ontario. Battle Harbour is just one of their stops. They'll carry on up the coast on the Ranger, all the way to Nain and back.
Welcome to Battle Harbour, folks. Morning. You're something of a special arrival. You are the first official boatload of tourists to come ashore. Come on up and we'll get things organized. Battle Harbour is actually a derivation of the word batal, for boat, Portuguese.
Tom Padden hopes there will be a lot more of this. With the fish gone, he looks to tourist dollars to help keep Battle Harbour alive.
When the fishery was booming,
Yes.
those big schooners, Twilight Wharf.
Sure.
This is the oldest building on the site, 200 years old.
There's pictures of the flakes with all the fish spread.
Oh, yeah.
Just in this little clearing just on the other side here, there was an enormous flake. It's the largest flake in Labrador. Nets are just about sewn. They're worked with a needle, a big needle. It's about so long and so wide.
A tiny island off the south coast of Labrador. A tiny island with a huge history. A history Tom Padden hopes will have mass appeal, especially in Newfoundland.
Everybody has got an uncle or a father or a brother or their mother or somebody was up on the Labrador, and every single one of them came through Battle Harbour at one point or another. I mean, this place had the only hospital for many years. It had, first off, it had the only church, and et cetera, on the southern Labrador coast. So, you know, everybody's familiar with Battle Harbour, and you know, it's hard not to find. It's hard. I mean, it's hard to find somebody who doesn't have a relative who has some connection to Battle Harbour.
There are memories here, and buildings that are all but complete. St. James Church, the first building restored, the second oldest wooden Anglican church in the province. And Grenfell's cottage, the house Wilfred Grenfell built for the staff of his new hospital. Brought over from England in pieces, put together here at the turn of the century.
It's no good just to restore the buildings and to have them empty and standing idle and have it as a static museum piece. We want to make sure the community stays alive. And in order to do that, we'll have to make sure that there's some sort of small, locally based economy here. And we'll do that through smoked salmon. We'll do it with the aid of tourism. We may do it with bake apples. We may do it with icebergs. You never know what we're going to, you know, the field is wide open to us, and really our only limit is our imagination, I guess.
This restoration is taking place at a point in time where Battle Harbour's history was almost to a standstill because of the closure in the COD moratorium. People had no reason to come back here anymore. But because of this restoration project, people kept coming here because they seen activity in other areas, because they seen a part of the island that was being put back together when everything else was falling apart. And I think that is what is important, that it has maintained the families on the island, has given people some jobs and a reason to keep coming here.
It'll be an adjustment for people like Ben Butt, seeing tourists here instead of fishermen. Still, his son has a job on site, and the sound of construction work pleases him, the sound of new life in old buildings.
Never ever thought it'd go up again. You know, we never thought this would go up like this. I guess surprised when they said they were going to do it up. We laughed at them, eh? Now we know it's going to go up now. And I'm glad it's going up. I mean, not going to do me no good, probably, but it's going to do a lot of my children that something for them to look at, to come back and say, look, this is where my father fished here for his lifetime, eh?
The restoration isn't just about the past, it's about the future, what generations to come can learn from this place. Battle Harbour was in its twilight, many of the old buildings just barely standing. If the restoration hadn't started when it did, some of the premises would have been lost for good. Now its place is secure in Labrador history.